When I first switched from Windows over to macOS, I realized that there were a bunch of weird symbols on the keyboard and I had no idea what they did, so I ignored them. I knew that Control is Command and Alt is Option, but then there's also Control, which was confusing. So I mostly used my Mac with a mouse, which was super slow. I couldn't hit the buttons half the time because they were that small. But then as I used macOS more and more, I realized that by using keyboard shortcuts, I can do things a lot faster. And not just slightly faster, much faster. Just like improving your typing speed lifts up everything that you do on your computer, learning to use keyboard shortcuts supercharges everything as well. So over the last 2 years of using a Mac, I've tried hundreds of keyboard shortcuts. In this video, I will use the tier system to rank them in terms of how useful they are to me. Let's run through what these letters mean. S tier, life-changing keyboard shortcuts. I would find it really annoying to use my Mac without them. A tier, really nice to know, but not the end of the world if I don't use them. I would prefer to know these keyboard shortcuts though. B tier, it's okay in some scenarios. C tier, it's okay if I don't remember these keyboard shortcuts. They can be useful in a small amount of use cases, maybe for other people, but most of the time I'm better off without them. D tier, complete waste of brain space. Also, this is what I think, and you may find that a shortcut I put in D tier is an absolute S tier keyboard shortcut for you. So, let us begin. I'm so excited for this video. Starting things off is Command D. Now, when you're downloading an image or something else from the internet, you're going to get this box here that asks you where you want to save things. And if for some reason it chooses a random folder, like your applications or downloads, or maybe you're even deep inside multiple folders, and sometimes you don't even see the sidebar. It opens like this. So to avoid navigating through here to your desktop, you can hit Command D and it will immediately jump you to your desktop folder. That's what this shortcut does. It just sends you straight to your desktop. Most times though, the sidebar isn't automatically hidden like this, which means I can click on my desktop, so that's why I'm putting this in B tier. It's an okay shortcut that I use sometimes, but it's nowhere close to A tier. Next are the J, K, and L keys. If you have a video open inside of QuickTime Player, you can hit the L key to start playing the video, hit it one more time to play at 2x speed, one more for 5x, 10x, 30x, 60x, and back to 2x. You can hit the letter K to stop completely, or you can rewind backwards with the J key. If you hit it once, it's going backwards. If I hit it one more time, it's going backwards at 2x speed, and so on, all the way up to 60 times. Now, I would probably put this somewhere in B tier as well if I couldn't do the same on YouTube. So if I open a YouTube video, I can hit the letters J, K, and L to skip 10 seconds forward, to start and stop playing, and to skip backward. Now, this obviously doesn't increase the playback speed, but you can do that with Shift and the right bendy bracket or the period key. If you hit that, it will increase the playback speed, and if you hit Shift and the comma key, it will decrease the playback speed. Very nice. So just because I can use them for YouTube, I'm putting them in A tier. Now you might say, oh, you can just skip 5 seconds with your arrow keys. The problem though is that sometimes arrow keys randomly decide to increase or decrease volume. So you're basically guessing whether it's going to fast forward or increase the volume. And if I do it with the J, L, and K keys, I can be 100% sure that it's going to do what I want to do. Command Q, it's definitely A tier. What it does is it quits an application fully. So I don't have to go into Safari here and quit Safari. I can press Command Q and quit it entirely. Obviously on macOS, if you just close a window of an application, that app still remains open. It just closed one window of the app. And it doesn't matter that there are no other windows of that app open, it will still remain open. So Command Q completely shuts it down. Next up is Command, Option, and arrow keys. When you have a bunch of browser tabs open, I did that with Command T, we'll get to that later, you can either switch between all of your tabs with your mouse like this, which is very slow, or you can do it by holding Option, Command, and clicking the right arrow key to skip to the right, or the left arrow key to switch to the left. This is super useful. It doesn't only work in Chrome, it also works in Safari. As you can see, I'm switching them left and right, and it also works in apps like Obsidian. As you can see, if I open more tabs, I can switch between them by holding Option, Command, and clicking left and right on my keyboard. This is such a great keyboard shortcut. I'm putting it in S tier. The next shortcut, Control Tab, is exactly the same as this one, and it also works on Windows. This doesn't work on Windows. So if I have a bunch of tabs open, I can switch between them with Control Tab. However, it's so much more comfortable to press Option, Command, and left and right arrow keys than Control Tab and Control Shift Tab. For some reason, it just breaks my fingers. So I'm putting it in C tier, and this one as well, because this switches forward and Control Shift Tab switches backward. And for some reason, I always miss when I'm trying to press this. I end up switching tabs with my mouse if I have to use that shortcut. So when I found out about this one, I was super stoked. Command Shift T. If you're browsing the internet and you go into a website like random.org, for example, and then you do a bunch of other stuff and accidentally close the random.org tab, instead of going to your history or trying to reopen it again, you can hit Command Shift T and it will reopen the most recently closed tab. This also works if you quit your browser and then reopen it again. You can hit Command Shift T to reopen the previous session. This is very useful if you frequently accidentally close tabs. You can hit Command Shift T and it will reopen all of them. This is definitely another A tier keyboard shortcut for me. Command tilde. Now this keyboard shortcut is also mostly useful for your browser, and it switches between different windows of the same app. Obviously on macOS you can't hover over an icon like on the Windows taskbar and it doesn't show you all the windows of this app that are open, which I think is completely stupid. Instead you can switch between different windows of the same application using Command and the tilde key or the squiggly line. So if I continue clicking it, it cycles between different windows of the same app. This is especially useful if you have multiple browser windows like this, one with random.org open, another one with your favorite song open and something else, and you have them full screen. You can quickly toggle between different instances of this application. Now you can also do this by swiping down on your trackpad with 3 fingers and it will bring up all the windows of the same app that are open. Or alternatively, you can click Control and the down arrow to do the same. So there's 3 ways. I can't say that I frequently use this shortcut since I mostly just use one instance of my browser with a bunch of tab groups like this and pinned tabs. So it lets me easily organize my stuff without it taking a bunch of space with full tabs like this. I can right click and add them to a new group, then name the group whatever I want and simply drag all of the apps that I want into that group and collapse it when I don't use it. And I can close it completely if I don't need it anymore. So I'm going to put this one in B tier. As I said, Control down does the exact same thing, but sort of shows all the windows like this and lets you choose between them, but I'm also going to put it in B tier. Now with that said, of course, there's a way to view multiple windows by force clicking on the app on your trackpad. But this does essentially the same thing as doing Control down. The same thing, just different ways of getting there. So that's why these are in B tier. Next up is Command Option Escape. What this one does is it lets you force quit an application if it's not responding. It's like the task manager on Windows. You click on an app and force quit. I don't use this one too frequently and some apps don't even show up here like all the apps that you have in your menu bar. So I'm going to put this in C tier. Command Tab. This is such a useful keyboard shortcut. If you don't know what it does, it lets you switch your apps like this. You don't have to go to your taskbar, the dock, to switch apps from here, which is slow, or you don't have to swipe up with 3 fingers on your trackpad to launch Mission Control, which reveals all of your apps like this. You can simply do it with Command and Tab. I can see all of my apps, even those that are hidden. We'll get to hiding apps in a moment, and you can switch between them. Now, one annoying thing with Command Tab is that when you minimize an app and you switch to it, so right now I'm switching to my Safari, and I release Command Tab, nothing happens. It just toggles Safari over here, but if there are no windows maximized, it doesn't care. It doesn't automatically maximize something. So to do that, you have to switch from another app into Safari, and when you're releasing Command, you also need to hold Option as well. So now I'm holding Option and Command, and I release both of them at the same time, and it maximizes it, which is just an unnecessary bonus shortcut that completely breaks my fingers every single time. So Command Tab, the normal one without maximizing anything, goes into S tier, and Command Option Tab, I use it a lot, so I can't put it in B or C tier. It goes into A tier, but it's an absolutely unnecessary thing. Why would it not automatically maximize something when I'm switching to it? And this time it switched to a completely random Chrome window, and obviously I wanted to switch to this one, which is currently minimized. So the whole minimizing behavior on macOS is just horrible, and that's the reason why I hide apps like this instead of minimizing them. Let's quickly cover that shortcut. See, this time when I switched to it, it actually opened the window that I wanted instead of randomly going to this one. So the shortcut to hide apps is Command H, and I'm going to put it as an S tier keyboard shortcut. I use it every day. What it does is it hides an app, and it hides it everywhere. So the Chrome window that I had here is also gone, and this one is also gone. If I want to unhide something, I can click on it with my mouse in the dock, or switch to it from Command Tab, which is something that I usually do. So Command H to hide apps is so much better than minimizing or using this yellow thing. This requires 3 misclicks until you hit the actual button, and every time you want to maximize something, you will either have to break your fingers with Command Tab by also holding Option, or have to go to your dock with your mouse and pick out an app that you want to maximize. Just use Command H instead. You don't have to worry about it. And when you switch, it will actually switch to the one you want. With that said, the keyboard shortcut for minimizing is Command M instead of using the yellow button. I'm going to put it in C tier since I usually hide apps instead of minimizing them. Command Backspace. On a Windows computer, you typically delete stuff with the delete key, but on macOS, if you want to delete something, for example, this innocent folder, if you press delete, nothing will happen. You have to press Command Delete. This is the same for applications as well as folders and apps. Command Backspace will delete them. I need that app, so I'm going to return it with Command Z, which is a shortcut for undo. Let's quickly rank both of them. So Command Delete. Did I put it in S tier? I'm going to demote it to A tier because I think these shortcuts are way more valuable to me than deleting stuff. Of course, you can also delete anything by dragging it straight into your bin. Now, the one that I just used was Command Z, and that's a shortcut for undo. I know it's here somewhere. Oh, while editing videos in Premiere Pro or photos in Photoshop, I frequently mess things up. So Command Z lets me undo things. Now, if you want to undo the undo on Windows, you would press Control Y, so it would move this folder back into the trash, but on macOS, it's Command Shift Z. So Command Z to undo and Command Shift Z to redo. Beautiful. Next, we have the space bar. It's not really a shortcut, just a key on your keyboard, and I'm putting it in S tier. I would have no spaces between my sentences. Just kidding. Let's quickly download a few images. So I've downloaded a few images of Shrek here, and if I click on one of them and press the space bar, it will open them with preview. I can choose another one and it will preview that one. I accidentally clicked on my desktop, and yes, it also previews folders. So right now it's telling me that there are 15 gigabytes of stuff in some of these folders on my desktop, which are mostly images of your mom. Just kidding. So anyway, by hitting the space bar, you can preview any image or any file very quickly. It's a lot faster than double clicking and opening that file in the default preview app. You just hit space bar and you instantly see what's inside. This works with videos as well. The next keyboard shortcut is Command Spacebar. This one also goes straight into the stratosphere. I mean S tier. What this one does is opens Spotlight Search, which is an amazing search bar that you can Google stuff through, do currency conversions, calculate stuff, and find all of your files. Now I did a little bit of a trick there and pressed F4 instead of Command Space because I actually use a different app called Alfred, which is a Spotlight Search replacement. There's also more like Raycast and yeah, those two pretty much. And most of the time, if I want to do a quick calculation, find a file, or even Google something, I use this search bar. Want to find that image of Megamind that you lost 3 months ago? There you go. Command Enter, and it takes you to Finder, where you can see that file. Want to open Photoshop? There you go. Maybe you want to convert $14 to euros, which is 12.9 euros. It does everything that your browser and your file manager at the same time. And you can do a bunch of other things like set up websites to where you don't have to type the URL, but it immediately goes there. Or you want to empty your trash, you can do that. You want to log out or restart your Mac. So that's why it's in S tier. Command Option Shift V. When you copy text and try to paste it somewhere, like inside of a page document, it sometimes does the annoying thing and pastes with the format that you originally copied it with. So to avoid this, you can press Command Option Shift V, which will paste text, completely ignoring the format that it's been copied with. I use this sometimes, so I'm putting it in B tier. Command. This is meant to be holding command. And what holding command allows you to do is move something in the background. If you hold command and click here, it doesn't switch to this app, but it lets me move it around. I pretty much never use this because to move windows around, I usually snap them with keyboard shortcuts or just move them to the side with my mouse. The app that lets me do this is called Rectangle, and it lets you snap windows to the edges of your screen on macOS, just like on Windows. If you don't use this app, I highly recommend. You'll be able to easily move and snap windows to the edges of your screen, just like you can on Windows. And if you're coming from Windows, this is the first app I would install. As I was saying, I don't really use the command shortcut, so I'm putting it in C tier. The next shortcut is Command-Shift-3, and all this one does is just takes a screenshot. Bloop. You can see down here on the right, you can either swipe it out to dismiss it, and it will save it to the default location, which for me is my desktop. I have two monitors connected, so it made two screenshots. Or when you take it, you can click on this thumbnail here and edit the screenshot immediately. Add an arrow, for example. Anyway, taking screenshots is pretty useful, so I'm putting this in A tier. Command-Shift-4. It's basically the same, but it lets you take a screenshot of a specific portion of your screen. You get this cross here that you can drag, and if you don't like where it started, you can also hold spacebar and it will let you move the whole thing around. So you can take a screenshot of anything. And the same thing like before, you can dismiss it and it will end up on your desktop. Another great keyboard shortcut that I use pretty frequently. Now this one looks pretty similar. Command-Shift-4, but then there's also Control in the mix for the whole soup of symbols. This is when you want to copy a screenshot to your clipboard. You press Command-Shift-4 to take a screenshot of a portion of your screen, but then you hold Control, and instead of appearing over here, it copies it to your clipboard. If I open Photoshop here, go to File, New, and create a new file, I can paste it from my clipboard into Photoshop. The same goes if you want to paste it somewhere in your browser or anywhere else. It just doesn't save that screenshot to your location. So it's easier because you don't have to delete it later. Command-Shift-4 and the spacebar. These just keep getting more confusing. What this one does is if you don't want to select the corners super precisely, you can hit Command-Shift-4 and then spacebar, and it will only take a screenshot of a particular window of an app. So if I have something like Safari open, I can press Command-Shift-4 and spacebar, and it will take a screenshot of the whole window. I can screenshot the calculator or the Safari window. And it even has this nice subtle shadow. Now, of course, if you want to completely break your fingers, you press Command-Shift-4, then spacebar to select an app, and then Control to copy the screenshot to your clipboard. Now you can call yourself a screenshot connoisseur. This one also goes into A tier. I take screenshots very frequently, especially for making videos or thumbnails. Now there should have been one more, which I completely forgot to include, and it's Command-Shift-5. This completes the trifecta. Command-Shift-3 takes a screenshot of your entire screen, Command-Shift-4 takes a screenshot of a portion of your screen with a few bonus things, and Command-Shift-5 is essentially all in one, but it also lets you record your screen. So here I clicked Command-Shift-5 and I can choose to capture my entire screen, which is the same as Command-Shift-3, capture a selected window, which is the same as Command-Shift-4 and the spacebar, or capture a selected portion, which is the same as Command-Shift-4. And I can also record my entire screen or record a portion of my screen. In the options, I can also choose my microphone, where it saves the recording, or whether I want to show my mouse clicks and a bunch of other things. And once I click record, I can make a video. And then up here in the menu bar, I can stop it and dismiss the thumbnail, and I'll find the recording on my desktop. So Command-Shift-3, Command-Shift-4, and Command-Shift-5 for taking screenshots and recording your screen. Very nice. Command-P. Instead of going to File and Print, you can press Command-P and it will print something. I can save this completely perfect one-to-one replica of this web page onto my PC as a PDF. I rarely do this, so I'm going to put it in C tier. Command-Shift-A. If you have your Finder selected, which means it shows Finder here, you can click Command-Shift-A and it will take you to your Applications folder. Now, this is probably not useful to most people, but when I'm doing a Mac app iceberg video like this one, That's a Windows iceberg. But when I'm doing a Mac app iceberg video, I have to install and uninstall like 50 different applications to test them out. So I'm going to put this in B tier. Command, comma. This one, no matter which app you're in, will bring up its settings. Command, comma in Safari brings Safari settings. Command, comma in Finder brings up Finder settings. By the way, this is where you can go into advanced and show all file extensions. So for every file, you'll see .pdf, or if I take a screenshot, you'll see .png. Anyway, Command, comma goes into settings, except for anything Adobe related. Photoshop or Premiere doesn't care about keyboard shortcuts. It's not that I don't use this shortcut, but I use it quite rarely, so I'm putting it in B tier. Command I. If you have any sort of image or video file, like a screenshot, you can select it and click Command I to get the info menu. What this does is provides some info, like the dimensions, the resolution of this image, and a bunch of other things like the size or the location. But you can also get there by right-clicking and choosing Get Info, which makes using the shortcut pretty fast, but I wouldn't say it's mega useful. Command plus or minus. This one zooms out and zooms in. This works in all sorts of applications like Photoshop. Command minus zooms out and Command plus zooms in. That should be my new profile picture. I use this one sometimes in my browser mostly, so I'm putting it in B tier. Command Shift N. This one opens an incognito window in your browser, which means that when you browse stuff through here, it will not save your browser history, and it will also delete all the cookies and site data when you close the window. Of course, your ISP and Google can definitely see what you're doing here, so if you want more privacy, you can use a VPN so that they see where you're going and not your internet service provider. It's up to you if that's a worthy trade-off. I use this keyboard shortcut an undefined amount of times, so I'm going to put it in B tier. Option. This is again meant to be holding option. When you're resizing a window, you can grab one corner and it only resizes from that one corner. Or you can hold option and it will resize all four corners, which looks really cool, but I never use it. So I'm putting this one in C tier. I'm not sure why D tier is still empty. Control and up arrow. This one does the same thing as swiping up with 3 fingers on your trackpad. So if you have multiple apps open or multiple windows of different apps, you can swipe up with 3 fingers on your trackpad or hit Control and up arrow and it will send you into mission control. Of course, from within mission control, you can create new virtual desktops and then swipe between them, which basically act as different spaces for different apps. So you can put your browser there, your calculator there, and your pages documents here. And instead of switching between them with Command Tab, which you can also do, you can swipe with 3 fingers on your trackpad to the left or to the right to switch these spaces and separate the things that you're doing. Again, I mostly switch apps with Command Tab and not with Mission Control. And when I use Mission Control, it's mostly with the trackpad. So I'm putting this one in C tier. Control Command A. What Control Command A does is if I have a screenshot and click here to edit the screenshot, I can click Command Shift A and it doesn't work. You need to open the screenshot with preview, then go into markup, and here if you press Control Command A, it will insert an arrow. That's all it does. Since for some reason you can't do it immediately with the preview window by clicking on this screenshot here, and you have to open it separately, I'm going to put this one in D tier. It's not because D tier wasn't occupied yet and I felt the pressure to put something here, or maybe it is. The next keyboard shortcut is Option and arrow keys, and this one is mega useful. This one has to do with text and it saves me a lot of time. So when you're typing something, fun fact, I think all the letters of the alphabet are in this sentence, and say you make an accidental mistake. Instead of dog, you say bog. What you would typically do is move to this letter with your arrow keys and then correct it like this. Or what some people do is delete the entire word like this and then retype it again. But this is quite slow, especially if you have a super massive word. Something like hippopotamus. If I accidentally left one P here, I would have to delete a bunch of times, which is quite slow if you make a lot of typos. So that's where this shortcut comes in. What it does is if you hold Option and click the left or the right arrow keys, it jumps across the whole word instead of one letter at a time. This also works with backspace. So if you want to delete the entire word, you hold Option and then backspace instead of just backspace, which would delete only one letter at a time. The more you improve your typing speed, the better the synergy between this keyboard shortcut and your typing speed, because it becomes a lot faster to delete the entire word and retype it again than to delete one letter at a time. Now this also works with Shift as well. So if you want to select multiple words and you don't want to do it with your mouse, because what often happens is you accidentally select a little too much or a little too little. So what you can do is instead of holding Shift and clicking the arrow key, which just selects one character at a time, you can add Option and it will select the entire word. This is definitely an S-tier keyboard shortcut. In the beginning, it wasn't super intuitive for me to use this, and it often took a lot longer to actually click Option and delete the entire word, but once I got used to it, now I can't live without this shortcut. On Windows, you can do the same with Control Delete or Control Backspace. Now, there is another one that's as useful as this one, and instead of Option and arrow keys, it's Command and arrow keys. Of course, I totally forgot to include it in here. Let's pretend it's next to this one in S tier as well. What that one does is instead of jumping over just one word, it jumps over the entire line. So if I want to delete the entire line, I would click Command Delete instead of selecting this with my mouse and then clicking delete on my keyboard. It's mega useful. If you add a Shift, it also selects the words that you jump over. So that imaginary one is right here. Control, Option, left or right arrow keys. This keyboard shortcut will only work if you have an app called Rectangle installed. I mentioned it before, and it lets you snap windows to the edges of your screen like this. Now you can either drag your windows to the side with your mouse or at the top and it will snap into place, or you can press Control Option and use the arrow keys, which will do the snapping a lot faster. Also, if I do the right arrow once, it snaps like this, then twice, it takes up a little more space, and one more time, it takes very little space. And if I do Control Option up, it maximizes it, and Control Option down, it returns it to the original position. Now you can obviously customize these settings inside of the rectangle's settings. Remember, to get to settings, you press Command, comma, didn't work. And then here are all the keyboard shortcuts. And if you click this one, it will open up the Pro section. Anyway, I'm going to put this one in A tier. Command T. In the beginning of this video, I opened a bunch of browser tabs like this without using my mouse. And that basically was this keyboard shortcut, Command T. It opens a new tab in your browser, but it also works in apps like Obsidian. Command T and it will open a new tab. Now, what do you do once you have a bunch of tabs open? You click Command W and it will close the current tab or the current window of an application that's open. So once there were no more tabs, it closed the actual Obsidian window because it was the last tab remaining. But of course, the app Obsidian still stays open because you have to quit apps with Command Q. So Command T will open a new tab and Command W will close the current tab. Beautiful. I'm going to put both of them inside of S tier because I use my browser every single day and I frequently just open a new tab and start typing something to start searching. Let's quickly zoom out with Command minus. You know that one already, it's in B tier. Next up is Command Shift Option Escape. I think it logs you out. Oh no, it force quits an application. Please tell me my tier list is saved. Yes, that's good. See, I reopened the previously closed browser tab with Command Shift T. So when Google Chrome quit, I no longer had access to the tier list. So I pressed Command Shift T and it reopened the previously closed session, which is why this is in A tier. So this one force quits an application that's in front. So if Photoshop crashed and it took up the whole screen and I wasn't able to do anything, I could press Command Option Shift and escape and it would force quit Photoshop. Since I wasn't sure what this did, I don't really use the shortcut. Actually, I've never needed to use it once. I always force quit apps by opening this with Command Option Escape. It's another shortcut that I've talked about before. It's here, Command Option Escape. And then I choose the app that I want to force quit. So I'm putting this one in D tier actually. You don't really need to remember it if you remember this one. Next up is Command F. This is definitely either an S tier or an A tier. Actually, it's an S tier. I would hate not having Command F. What it lets you do is if you have like a PDF, or actually if you're on any web page, you can click Command F and search for anything. If I search for a word, it found that there are 154 mentions of the word win, and now it's highlighting the first one, this one. I can click the down arrow and it will highlight the next one. Now what I just recently found out is I don't have to come here with my mouse and hit these arrows to highlight the next one. I can press Command G or Command Shift G to highlight forward and backward. So now it's highlighting the third word win in this entire PDF document. And if I press Command G, it's highlighting the fourth one and the fifth and sixth and so on. And if I add Shift, so Command Shift G, it's going to go back. So that's what the Command F shortcut lets you do. It lets you search for anything. Now for the Command G one, I have not really used it once apart from in this video. So I'm going to put it in C tier. Next shortcut is Function Delete. This one also has to do with text. On Windows, if you press delete, it will delete backwards or forwards to the other side. On macOS, if my cursor was here and I wanted to start deleting the word dog, I would have to move my cursor here and then start deleting. Unless, of course, you know the keyboard shortcut, which is function delete, and it will delete backwards. So that's what it does. Not going to lie, I never got used to deleting backwards on Windows, so it's a C-tier keyboard shortcut for me. I know that for a lot of people, this is such a great keyboard shortcut, especially when they're coming to macOS from Windows. Command Control Q. Oh, this is the one that logs out. Control Command Q. Let's hope the screen recording doesn't end. So this one just logs out. If you don't use the Apple Magic Keyboard, say you're using the Mac Mini with a custom keyboard or your MacBook with an external keyboard, and you don't have the Touch ID button, then I can see how this shortcut could be useful. However, I always lock my Mac by pressing the Touch ID button or the side of it so it doesn't reactivate. So I'm going to put this one in C tier because I never use it. Control C. This one is really useful for the terminal. If you do something inside of your terminal, like use the caffeinate command to stop your Mac from going to sleep while the terminal window is open. So now until I close this terminal window, my Mac will not go to sleep. But closing it is just one way of stopping a command from doing its thing. The other way is to press Control C, which stops whatever is happening inside of the terminal. I don't frequently use this command, but sometimes I do. So it's a B tier. The next keyboard shortcut is Command L. This one also has to do with your browser. When you're on a website, actually let's go back here, and you want to quickly search up for something else, you have two options. Either open a new tab and start immediately typing here, or you can come to the address bar with your mouse and start typing something here. But this is quite annoying because you have to do something with your mouse. So if you want to quickly jump to the address bar, you can click Command L and it will immediately take you there. This works best if you're already on some sort of a website and you don't want to keep it open. You don't want to open a new tab. So say I want to go to YouTube now, I'll click Command L, which will highlight the address bar, and type in YouTube. Beautiful. Now, since I typically go the longer route and open a new tab to search for something, I'm going to put this one in C tier. Next up, we have Command Shift question mark. What this one does is it brings up the help menu. Now this help menu might look tiny and useless, but it's actually overpowered, especially when you're learning a new software. Instead of Googling and trying to figure out what kind of keyboard shortcuts exist for a specific application, you can click Command Shift question mark and search for the thing you want to do through here. For example, new, if I want to insert a new document. And if I hover over this new here, it will immediately take me there inside of the menu bar. Not only that, it will point to where it is with this blue thing, and it will even tell me the keyboard shortcut. So if I want to create a new file, I can come up to File and click New, or hit Command N on my keyboard, and it brings up the new document menu. So the help menu can be quite useful. However, you can easily access it through here and not with the keyboard shortcut, and that's what I typically do. Since for most programs that I use, like Photoshop, Adobe Premiere Pro, or a browser, I already know a bunch of keyboard shortcuts. I don't use the help menu that frequently. So I'm going to put this one in C tier, not because it's not useful, but because I don't use it. Control and arrow keys. This one switches virtual desktops, either left or right. I covered virtual desktops before, and if you go into your mission control with Control and the up arrow, or by swiping up with 3 fingers on your trackpad, you can create multiple spaces or multiple virtual desktops that you can switch between either by swiping on your trackpad or by using this keyboard shortcut, Control left or right. Now, what I'm about to say next will probably anger some people, so here we go. This keyboard shortcut is slow. If you have a ProMotion display, or in normal terms, if your display's refresh rate is more than 60 Hz. As a completely unrelated side note, if you recently bought a new monitor, and especially if you're on Windows, make sure to right-click, go into Display Settings, and then under Advanced Display, make sure that you have set your refresh rate to the highest amount. If you have a new monitor and you haven't done this, make sure to double check. You might be running a fast display at 60 Hz that's capable of running at 144 Hz. Make sure it's set to the highest amount. Everything will feel buttery smooth on your display. Now back to this keyboard shortcut. I said it's pretty slow, and that's because for some weird reason, if you have a high refresh rate monitor, this switching animation takes longer. If I set my display to 60 Hz, by the way, you can get to display settings by clicking Option and F2 2 on your keyboard. So if I set this from 165 Hz to 60 Hz, of course the video that you're currently watching is at 30 FPS, so you're not going to see any difference, but there's a huge difference for me now. And now when I switch virtual desktops, it happens faster. Essentially, having a better monitor makes switching virtual desktops slower on macOS. And that's why I'm putting this shortcut in C tier, because for some weird reason, the higher your monitor's refresh rate, the longer the animation takes, which is just so stupid. I wish I could disable these animations, and you can disable animations by enabling what's called reduce motion, but if I enable this, it will still fade out between virtual desktops. But this is also an animation. It fades out over a longer period of time, so it doesn't make sense to remove all the beautiful macOS animations just for a single one. Of course, there is a workaround. If you have less than 10 virtual desktops, if you're not crazy, you probably have less than 10, you can switch between them by holding Control and then clicking numbers on your keyboard. So Control 1 will go to the first one, Control 2 to the second one, Control 3 to the third one. If I add any more, then it will be that corresponding number. What this does is, for some reason, it switches a lot faster. This is me switching with my numbers, and this is me switching with the Control and arrow keys. It's a lot slower. So that's why this one goes into C tier. Actually, I'm demoting it to D tier. This keyboard shortcut just annoys me. Apple, please fix. Command-Shift-5. Oh, so I had this one in here. This one was the keyboard shortcut for all-in-one screenshots and recording your screen. I thought I didn't have it here, but I was blind. So I'm going to put it next to all other keyboard shortcuts for taking screenshots. Command-Shift-3 for the entire screen, Command-Shift-4 for a portion of your screen, and Command-Shift-5 for an all-in-one bundle, and also for recording your screen. Beautiful. Next, we have Control-Command-Space. This one does a very simple thing, and it brings up the emoji keyboard. That's all it does. Also in here, you can select this one, and it will bring up the character view window where you can insert more stuff, like the arrow symbol, for example, or the finger symbol pointing the other way. Oh, I just made the emoji. There are a bunch of different symbols that you don't typically find on your keyboard, so that's where you can find them. To go back to the emoji keyboard, click this one more time, and you have your emojis. I use this sometimes, so it goes into the B tier. Command Shift, left and right arrow keys. I already covered this one, and what it does is it basically lets you select a word that you jump over with your cursor. So I'm putting this in A tier as well, right next to the Command and Arrow keyboard shortcut, which jumps over an entire word without selecting it. One without Shift and the other one with Shift. Next, we have a whole line of simple keyboard shortcuts that you probably already know if you've watched this far into the video. Command S saves something, so I'm putting it in A tier because this keyboard shortcut is so deep inside my muscle memory that I don't even realize I'm pressing it. Adobe Premiere Pro has crashed so many times that I've learned to just press this keyboard shortcut as soon as 1 minute passes. I don't want to lose any progress. So you better believe when I'm editing a video, I'm smashing the Command S shortcut. The paint is starting to wear off. Then we have Command C to copy something, obviously very useful, and Command V to paste something. Let's zoom out with Command minus. Next we have Shift Enter. I remember being so happy when I discovered this one. It's really useful in programs like Microsoft Word, Apple's Pages, or Google Docs. By the way, if you type docs.new, it will create a new Google Doc document. So when you're writing a document and you have a bunch of text, sometimes you may want the next paragraph to start on a completely new page. For that, you would typically add a page break. And as you can see, the keyboard shortcut for that is Command Enter. So if I come here and press Command Enter, it will add a page break. The page will end here. Google Docs has this weird thing where it glues pages together, so I'm going to show this inside of Pages. I have the same text here, and let's say I want to start a new page from here. I'll click Command Enter, and everything else will start from a new page. By the way, inside of Google Docs, if you want to search up for a command, you don't have to go in here with your mouse, but you can click Option and the backslash, or Option and the question mark key. So if you're doing something and you want to, for example, highlight this, but you don't remember where you can highlight stuff, click Option and question mark, put in highlight, and boom, it's now highlighted in complete black. Beautiful. I'm going to put this one in B tier. F3 brings up mission control. It's the same as doing Control and the up arrow or swiping up with 3 fingers on your trackpad. It's where you can add those virtual desktops. I don't really press F3 that frequently, so it's going straight into C tier. Command O. Now on macOS, inside of Finder, if you want to open something like a new folder, you can't press Enter. If you press Enter, it will let you rename that folder. On Windows, if you press Enter, it opens the folder. If you want to do that with a keyboard shortcut on Mac, it's Command O for open, which makes sense. I kind of like this behavior because I frequently rename a bunch of folders, so clicking enter and then renaming something is a lot more intuitive for me than clicking enter to open. I'm going to put both the Command O and the Enter keyboard shortcut, that's just a key on your keyboard, into B tier. Next are just arrow keys. I'm starting to list keys on the keyboard. What this was meant to be was moving one frame inside of QuickTime. So if you open a video inside of QuickTime Player, you can move one frame at a time with your arrow keys. So it just skips one frame. If you're using something like VLC, you can move one frame at a time by clicking the letter E. So it says here next frame, and it moves one frame at a time forward. However, you can't move backward. I have no idea why. So that's what the arrow keys are for. I'm also putting them in B tier. Next up is Option Shift F2. Now this is more of a Mac tip, but what hitting F1 and F2 lets you do by default is increase and decrease the brightness of your monitor. However, if you hold Option and Shift and press F2 or F1, it's going to increase or decrease your brightness in smaller increments so that you can get the perfect amount of photons hitting your retinas. I use this one occasionally. Also, it works with volume control, so Option Shift and then volume up or volume down will increase it in smaller increments, so I'm going to put it in B tier. Control space. Now we had Command space, which brings up the search bar, and Control space switches your input language. So if you have multiple languages on your Mac, you can hit Control space and instantly start typing in a different language. Of course, you can also do that by hitting the globe icon, aka the function key. It's pretty useful, so I'm putting this in B tier. Control 1, 2, and 3. I've already talked about this one, and of course forgot to rank it here, and what it does is it switches virtual desktops. So Control 1 will go to the first one, Control 2 the second one, Control 3 to the third one, and so on. As I said before, when you have a high refresh rate monitor, doing this is faster than swiping on your trackpad with 3 fingers because the animation takes longer. So I'm putting this one in A tier. Command N. We went over how to create a new tab in your browser with Command T, and Command N creates a new window. And it's not only for your browser, any other app will work, whether it's Photoshop, Obsidian, Apple Notes, or anything else. Any app that has new window inside of the file menu will have this keyboard shortcut. So Command N creates a new window, Command T creates a new tab, and Command W closes that tab. It's a great keyboard shortcut because otherwise you would have to go onto the app, right click, and choose new window, which takes quite a while. So I'm going to put this one in A tier. Command Shift G. This one works if you have Finder highlighted. So if you're on your desktop and you see Finder on the top left, or if you're inside Finder. When you press this, you can paste in a path of a folder or a file and click enter to reveal that file inside of Finder. This is quite a niche use case, but I use this when I'm creating animations with Manim. Essentially, when I create an animation like this, it will give me its path here, output file. So I can copy this path, go to my desktop, press Command Shift G, Command V to paste, and enter, and it will take me exactly to this animation file. I can preview it and import it into my video editing software to continue working on the video. Doesn't it look super cool, by the way? Definitely cool. I could live without this shortcut, but I use it quite frequently, especially when I make animations. Command 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now sticking with the Finder theme, if you press Command 1, 2, 3, or 4, it will toggle between these views over here. So the icon view, the list view, the column view, which is super useful, and the weird view. I don't use this one too frequently. I probably don't even use it at all, so I'm putting this in C tier. Command Option V. I have no idea what Command Option V does. Let's quickly move it to the end of the line. Command Shift Backspace. This one will delete something without putting it into the trash can. So if you want to completely nuke a file without it having a chance to be put back from the trash can, hit Command Option Delete, and you can delete it immediately. I typically put things in the trash can because I frequently realize that I need them back. So I'm putting this one in C tier, function and the arrow keys. This one is another great keyboard shortcut for navigating text. So if you have a large amount of text and you need to scroll up and down to get to the beginning or to the end, you can hit function and the right arrow key. Okay, I've just tested this one out and it doesn't really do what it's supposed to do. So what it's supposed to do is if you click function and the right arrow key, it's supposed to jump to the end of the document. It's like the home and end keys on Windows. But that leaves an opportunity for another keyboard shortcut, command and down and up arrow keys. This one will for sure take you to the bottom of the document and the top of the document. You can also hold command shift and then up or down to select the entire thing. So instead of function left right arrow keys, you can do command up or down arrow keys to jump to the top or the bottom of your entire text document. Since it didn't really work as I expected, I'm going to put this one in C tier because I obviously used the command one instead of the function one. Oh, never mind. I figured out what's the difference between function and arrow keys and command and arrow keys. This works in your browser. So function and left and right arrow keys take you to the end and the beginning of a web page. No matter how long it is, no matter how much you have to scroll, function and right arrow key will take you to the bottom. Function and left arrow key will take you to the front of the page. But if you do command right and left arrow keys, it will go back and forward in your browser. So command left goes backward and command right goes forward. Now I know. Command enter. This one is also super useful. If you look up for a file through Alfred or Spotlight, for example, a folder on my desktop, wait, what? Instead of pressing enter to open that folder, you can press command enter to reveal that folder inside of Finder. Of course, this also works with files. So if I take a screenshot and it's on my desktop, I'll name it Shrek. And if I search for it through Alfred, instead of clicking enter, which will open that file, I can click command enter to reveal where it is inside of my file system. I use this quite a lot when editing videos because I have to navigate a bunch of files, so I'm putting this one in A tier. Command and Option. If you have a file, a folder, or something else, you can hold command and option and drag it to another place to create an alias or a shortcut to that folder. So right now this is an alias and this is the actual folder. It's like creating a shortcut to a folder on Windows. And if I delete the shortcut, it will not delete the actual folder. Like I have a shortcut here. This is a shortcut folder that's on my desktop, and the actual folder that this links to is in a completely different directory than my desktop. So I sometimes create aliases, so I'm putting this one in B tier. And if we ignore the leftover shortcut, that concludes the Mac keyboard shortcut tier list. Oh, and there's one S tier keyboard shortcut that I completely forgot to mention. Psych.